Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 4.3. Today we're going to be talking about risks and rewards and investing in general. To start us off, we are going to be just looking at choosing investments, and I want you guys to let me know, would you rather in 2003 have had a brand new pair of Air Jordan or had 15 shares of Nike? So 15 shares and a brand new pair of Air Jordans were about the same price. Which do you think is going to have a bigger payoff? And you guys can already see if you're looking in the table that by January of 2013, so 10 years later, those Nike stocks that started at about 11.50 are now worth almost $52 and worth even more now, I'm sure. Which means that if you had invested in Nike stock in 2003, that you would have over almost $800, looks like. And the reason that we're talking about this specifically is because there is a man named Damon Williams. When he was 6, he asked his mom for the newest style of Nike Air Jordan shoes, and that was in 2003. And his mom put her foot down, and she said that if he wanted another pair, he had to save up his money to buy them. She also said that if he was going to keep buying these Nike shoes, that he was going to own a piece of the Nike company, and so he would also need to buy a share of the company stock. By the age of 18, Damon had a stock portfolio that was worth $55,000. And he did that by investing a little at a time in stable, growing companies. He holds his stocks for at least 7 years. And then when the stock prices fall, he purchased some more shares at lower prices. And he said, anybody can do this. It's not just for rich people. I want to pay my own way through college, buy real estate, and see my children graduate from college also. And so he's also using this sort of mantra that a lot of people use when they are investing, where you buy low and sell high. So most people who invest are going to start out by buying stocks at a low price, sell when they reach a high point, usually after 5 or more years. And you can always buy more stocks when those prices drop, as long as it's a stable company like Nike that you know isn't really going to like disappear. They're not going to go bankrupt. So today we are going to answer these questions. Are there other ways to invest other than buying stock? Isn't investing risky? And how much risk am I willing to take when I'm investing? Are there ways to reduce the possibility that I'll lose money on my investment? And hopefully you'll be able to use what you learned today to set up your own rules for investing and make some smart, responsible, and informed investing decisions in the future, maybe even later today. So to start us off, we are going to talk about Justin's investors. Justin and his 18-year-old brother, Derek, stopped by a movie rental store that's going out of business, which of course it is because there's only one left, I think, in the entire country. And they are surprised by how many great movies are priced at next to nothing. Justin gets the idea to buy the clearance sale movies and sell them at a higher price online. Derek asks how he'll pay for them, and Justin says he'll use the Just for Emergencies credit card their dad gave him before a class trip last week. Derek points out that legally, Justin's not old enough to sell through online auction sites, so he offers to help him out with the selling for part of a piece of the action. They quickly agree that Justin will give Derek 15% of net profits. Justin uses the credit card to buy $200 worth of movies, and they head home. Their mom is furious that Justin charged $200 without even asking, but their dad is impressed with Justin's plan. He says that just as with a real business, Justin would write us an IOU promising to repay the $200 to his dad in 6 months plus 3% interest. He also says that Justin has to put in his agreement with Derek in writing, giving him 15% ownership in the new company. Basically, Justin's dad and brother just invested in his new business. So we are going to talk about what some of these words mean. So to start us off, what is a shareholder? And a shareholder is just somebody who owns part of a business or a share of a business. So in Justin's business venture, who is or are the shareholders? And are they guaranteed any return on their investment? So in this case, Justin's dad and his brother Derek are shareholders. Are these shareholders guaranteed a return on the investment? In this case, they're not. In most cases, if you are investing in something, you're not really guaranteed a return. You're hoping for a return. You've hopefully done a lot of investing or research into your investments so that you know that you're going to have a good return, but you're not guaranteed one. What is the role of Justin's dad? What has Justin's dad provided in this case? And it looks like Justin's dad is providing sort of like the loan, right? So if you're starting your business, usually you would go to a bank to get a loan so that you can start your business. In this case, that's what Justin's dad is doing, sort of acting as a bank. What do you think are the chances that either of the investors will earn a return on his investment? So there's no guarantee that Justin will make enough money to pay them back or even stay in business. So there are a lot of reasons, right? The rental company itself for these movies was already going out of business. There's Netflix. This was back in 2014, but even still, like selling movies online, there's a chance that he's not going to make an investment on that $200 that he spent on movies. And so they might lose money. It's also hard for, like, anytime, if you've ever purchased a bunch of things and then try to sell them all, it could be difficult to get buyers. And would you have invested in Justice Business Venture, either as a stockholder or a bondholder, and why or why not? Right. So in general, when we are talking about risk, the greater the risk that you take on, the greater the return or the greater the reward. So you're going to hear a lot like high risk, high reward. That's something you may have already heard, which is basically just saying high risk or high potential of losing money. Then the higher the potential usually is of getting more money back. So an example that they have here is that like a startup, so just a company that's brand new, owning stock in a startup has a potential to have a really high payoff, right? So if you manage to get in the door on a company like Google when they were first starting out, and I'm sure that they paid lots of their employees in stock and in shares in the company, then you are almost certainly a millionaire now. But it also has a high potential risk of loss. So you don't know when you're in a startup whether or not that startup is going to gain money or lose money. They're going to go out of business. You don't know. On the other end, you have a certificate of deposit, which is almost going to guarantee a return. It's just that that return is not going to be nearly as high. All right, so looking at the language of investing, just defining some words that you're going to need to know to be able to invest, or that you're going to be seeing a lot and have probably already seen a lot in the last few days. So first one is asset, and this is just something of value that can be turned into cash. So like a stock, home, lakefront property, this is whatever you're investing in. You invest in an asset. Liability. You've probably heard people talk about like things being a liability, and that is just something that's owed to another person. So loan, rent. Rate of return is the degree to which an asset gains or loses values over a given period of time. And we've talked about this in terms of careers, but we are also thinking about this a lot in terms of just investments. So the interest on your savings is the return. Your stock value increasing or decreasing is the return on that investment. And then risk is the uncertainty of achieving a desired result. You are going to be completing a little task called investment FAQs, as just frequently asked questions. For this, you are going to choose 5 of these different types of investments. So bonds, mutual funds, real estate, collectibles, business, futures, index funds, and precious metals. You're gonna pick 5 of those, any 5. If you do extra, you can for extra credit. And then you're gonna be answering these questions. So the basics, how do I invest in this type of investment or asset? Why would someone want to invest in this asset? What are the costs to invest in it? What is the typical return? And this can be a range. So you can give me like, oh, the typical return is 50 to 200 or like 110% to 130% or something like that on this type of investment. You can also give me an average if it gives you an average when you're looking it up. Is this considered a low, medium, or high investment risk, and why? So those are the questions you're going to be answering for that. And let's talk a little bit more about risk. So everybody has a different risk tolerance, which is just how willing you are to take a risk. Your risk tolerance depends on when you need the money, so short term or long term, your financial goals, your ability to live with any investing decisions with unpleasant consequences. So if I definitely need for an investing opportunity to pay off, then I'm probably going to have a lower tolerance for risk because I can't afford to lose money. Whereas if I can afford to lose $10,000, then I might have a higher level of risk tolerance because I can invest that $10,000 in a high risk venture and still be okay if I lose it. So tame the risk. Make sure that you can cover your necessary financial needs. So like you don't want to invest your rent money, right? You need that. Know what you are getting into before you invest and invest in different types of investments. So you are going to be looking at diversification for your asynchronous work this afternoon or whenever you're done with class. And that's one way to sort of like help you protect yourself or at least like limit the amount of risk that you're taking on, which is what we're going to talk about now. So diversifying just means that you're not putting all of your eggs in one basket. You're not just investing in one stock and you're not just investing in one kind of asset. So you're not just investing in stocks in general or just in bonds or just in savings accounts or things like that. You want to invest in a combination of asset categories. So more than one asset. And look, same example, right? You don't want to just own Facebook stock. You want to own different types of stocks. You also want to own in a variety of assets. So not all CDs or all stocks, all bonds. You want to like mix it up. And then you also want to mix investments within an asset category. So different industries. So even like here they have not all retail, but same thing with like Facebook. You don't want to just invest in technology. You want to invest in a variety of sectors because as events happen, different areas and different industries are going to be impacted, and you don't want to have a huge loss, or even like you don't want to have a huge loss just because you didn't diversify enough in your assets. Different size companies, so not just small companies, not just large companies. And you want to divide your investments among several baskets. So the more you're diversifying, usually the better you are protecting yourself against risk, or you're limiting the amount of risk that you're taking on. Because even if one area is struggling, you're still probably gaining money in several other areas. And so you're not going to get hit as hard when you have losses, because loss is almost a guarantee whenever you're making any kind of investment because there's going to be risk involved. And that is it for our sort of investment basics for today. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next time.